We're already into the deep end of the pool, as they say. I hope everybody's doing well. It's kind of late of me to ask, but oh well. Better late than never. I'm taking the silence as a yes. It's funny, I was kind of reflecting a little bit. Something we were talking about yesterday, and I was talking with one person privately. It's kind of so interesting how the mind is just has this tendency to convince itself why someone else is at advantage in this whole process and someone else is on a disadvantage in some way, right? And it's kind of like you can't win, like every argument will be, you know, like it's let's say if it's like, oh, if someone is coming from like a background, like a heavy training and years of intense retreats, it's like, oh yeah, you know, they did all those retreats and that's why, right? But then you say like, oh, you know, let's say Angelo, he haven't done a single retreat before his shoot, it's like, oh no, his karma was ready, you know, it's like and then it's like so where can you, like, I mean, like, do you have to find like a middle-aged, middle-trained, like like a person in the middle of everything, just to kind of, I mean, and you can find, you know, case for actually every walk of life. So it's, you know, there's absolutely nothing in the external situations that brings about the transformation or kind of unbinding to happen. And you know, and everybody has their trajectory and their path, and it takes sometimes, you know, different things. Sometimes it takes apparently just takes a longer time. Sometimes take way shorter time than we would like to. Sometimes it takes you know, in some cases some difficult circumstances arise that kind of push people over the edge or something, and sometimes just a sort of power of one's investigation itself. You know, there are definitely those people too. But in a way, like if you really do it with your heart, it's like you can't fail. It's the setup, you know. And I think it's also from the Bible, like there's this quote, something about, it is only if you are neither hot nor cold. If you're lukewarm, then I guess the quote saying, I'll spit you out of my mouth. So yeah, a little bit harsh, but it's rather saying, like, you know, whichever thing you take, and if you really just honor it all the way, you know, that's all it takes. And if you're kind of like, someone else did that, I won't ever do it, then, you know, there's kind of like a little bit lukewarm something about that. But kind of just saying, it doesn't matter how much it takes. It doesn't matter what it takes. You know, I'm after that. That's all it takes. And everything along the way is part of the journey too. My favorite Zen ancestor is, I know Japanese pronunciation because I lived in Japan. He's from China. His name is Kyogen Jikan, and he was this monk in the 8th century, and he, or maybe 9th century more, or 10th even, don't remember. And he practiced in the monastery for many years with the great masters, and he kind of switched the monastery, and he was just practicing and practicing and practicing and practicing, and just constantly. And he was a brilliant scholar too. He knew all the sutras and everything, but yet just understanding wasn't. It's just getting him nowhere in that path of direct investigation. Knowledge is just not really that helpful, and he was just getting frustrated, and he was just, he had this brilliance about him, but just couldn't put it down. So just continuously just getting frustrated and having dialogues with the teachers and finally, after some years of that, he was just like, there's just no way. Like, there's no point in me even wasting time of those teachers, eating rice from the monastery kitchen. Like, there are probably better use of this rice for some other monks. Just completely. There's no point. So he left, and he went to this province and just stayed. Basically, he saw a little stupa for some past monk, some past teacher, and he decided he'll just, at least he can contribute to something good, something maybe not huge or significant, but he can contribute something. So he decided he just keep it clean, keep this grave clean, and he would just go out, take a broom, just sweep around, weed a little bit, maybe beg for some food, and go to sleep. And he didn't entertain any ideas of what the sutras are pointing to, or what they meant, or what it all meant, or what this effort was all for, or anything. Let's just clean this grave. And then one day he was cleaning the grave, and he swept the pebble, and the pebble hit the bamboo. And in this moment he heard it, and he really, his mind completely opened. And then he became a famous teacher, and there are some koans about him and all of that. But in a way, I really feel like the biggest resonance with him from all the big ancestors, and he's not the only one. There's some other stories about different teachers who. Another one is probably the most famous is Linchi, right? The master from whose name the Rinzai school is continuing until now. And he was this, young monk. He's staying in the monastery for 3 years and doing everything. Probably I won't remember the details of it, but I'll still try to tell it. And he was in the monastery, and suddenly the head monk of the monastery just noticed there's this kind of young monk who is kind of, there's something sharp about him, and yet, he's just constantly by himself or whatever. So he came up to him and said, how long have you been in this monastery? And Linchi said, 3 years, sir. And he said, have you ever seen our teacher? And he said, no, sir, I never knew what to ask. And the head monk said, in that case, why don't you go and ask what is the essence of Buddhism? Just, give it a go, you'll have some exchange with the teacher. Why don't you do it? And so Linchi went, the head monk arranged for the meeting. It was a big monastery, 3,000 monks. Not everybody was going to the teacher all the time. So he arranged for that, and then Linchi came into the room, and asked, what is the essence of Buddha Dharma? And the teacher took this huge stick and started to whack him. And he was just really beat him up, and Lynch just barely escaped from the room and left. And the head monk is walking around, looking at all the monks, and he's seeing this young dude coming back from the abbot's quarters, and he's coming back, oh, have you been to our teacher yet? And he's like, yes, sir, I just came back. And he said, like, so what happened? He said, I asked the question that you thought would be good to ask, and I got beaten. And the head monk is saying, you know what? Don't worry about that. It's all good. Why don't you go tomorrow and ask, what is the essence of Buddha Dharma? You might, it might work out differently, whatever. And this young monk, very straightforward, very sincere, was like, okay, if you think that it would be good, that's what I'll do. So next day, he's again coming into the room and asking, so what is the essence of Buddha Dharma? And again, he gets beaten to the bloody pulp and thrown away. And the same thing happens. Head monk is kind of coming by and saying like, hey, so what's up? And he's saying, hey, I got beaten again. And he's saying, you know what? Don't give up. 3 times is what it takes. Like, you should go there tomorrow again and ask, what is the essence of Buddhism? And see what the teaching will be for you. And Lynch, of course, went, of course, beaten up, and got thrown out of the room. And so then he meets head monk, and he's saying, 3 times I went and asked about the essence of Buddha Dharma, and 3 times I got beaten, and I don't know where's my fault, and I'll leave. I just can't continue. Just makes no sense. This is it. So the head monk said, okay, if that is so, but go to abbot's quarters and take your leave. Just have to say, like, hey, I'm leaving the monastery, and then you go, right? So the head monk went to the abbot and said, like, this young man, who is quite a prospect, he will come to take his leave tonight, so please see him. And the monk came, Rinchi came to the abbot's quarters and said, I don't understand, 3 times I came here and I asked what is the essence of this whole thing, and 3 times you have beaten me, and I don't know where is my fault. So I won't waste your time anymore, and I'll take my leave. And Obaku, which was his teacher, said, this is fine. Just go and see if you have nowhere to go south and go see Taigu. He's my Dharma brother, and maybe you can stay there. See ya. And Linchi left. Completely, both figuratively and literally beaten up. Just left and went to monastery of Taigu. And he arrived, and someone just checked with him, like, oh, where are you coming from? He's saying, I'm coming from Obaku. He said, oh, did you want to see his good friend Taigu is the abbot here? Maybe you want to see him. And he went to see Taigu, and Taigu asked him, where did you come from? And he's saying, I'm coming from Obaku. How's Obaku these days? Quite good, but I had to leave. And it's like, so what happened? And he says, 3 times I went to inquire and asked, what is the essence of Buddha Dharma? And 3 times he beaten me with a stick. And I don't know where's my fault. and I don't know, what to do. And Taigu said, so 3 times he had shown you the grandmotherly love and you never thanked him. And the story goes that in this instant Linchi was enlightened. And he grabbed, he came up and he grabbed Taigu and just squeezed him. And Taigu said, you just came here whining that you don't know what your fault is, and now you're pulling the tiger's whiskers. He said, I don't want to have any trouble with you anymore. You go back to Obaku. And so it happened, and Linchi came back to Obaku. And I wish I remembered their exchange. Esha, do you remember?
Can you make it up?
I can just tell you that there was some beating involved. I'll Google it later. But the whole point is not, I guess this is just like, there was just some lively exchange between it. I think Linchi beaten up Obaku. Or they just exchange insults, or there's Tang Dynasty. It's just wild out there. But the whole point, it's about actually the in both cases, right? Both Kyogen and Linchi, they both at some point they were just like, this won't work. It's and both of them, they were just like utter greats, right? Like Linchi was just, people were just like coming from all over the China trying, to see him, his fame, his sharpness and kind of his style of teaching, very powerful, very dynamic. So he also definitely had this had low moments, and sometimes the low moments are precisely when the grip of the manager and the self and all of that is just loosened. That's how it goes. So for some of us, that's basically how it has to go. You just can't go otherwise. It's not like it's always getting clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer, and suddenly I was like, no, I have never seen that. And for me, like both the kind of first shift I had and the second shift I had was exactly that. There was nothing triumphant about it at all. Zero. It was just the first one was actually during the Buddha's enlightenment session, right? It's like the most intense session in the monastery, and I came to the monastery and I immediately got pulled into the kitchen, and the kitchen is a rough assignment for a 23 years old who can figure out scrambled eggs at most, but I can't even read the ingredients, not that I even if I would be able to read what is mirin, I never heard of mirin. I never traveled outside of Europe. We didn't have like ethnic food in Poland. You didn't go for sushi. It's not like a part of the landscape. So being pulled into the kitchen and suddenly have to cook for sometimes 60 people during retreats and everything, not understanding anything, it was just really stressful. It was just like messing up my concentration and everything. I was just constantly have to figure out stuff and work with all sorts of characters in the kitchen and just all the time sort of. So this was really kind of painful because I just had this fire of I just want to do it 100%, and yet now I'm just in the kitchen, I can sit, quite some rounds, but but still it's just like, breaking my momentum, and just keeps me thinking about stuff like, like everything is like same, like it's, coming from Europe here, right? Like it's, unless you figure out what's like quart, what's Fahrenheit, like, just, and same in Japan, it's like go, like measurement is go, like you don't even understand, like, and there was no Google back then, right? Like it's like, no, like can check it somewhere, it's just like, okay, that's it. So it's just like from bad to worse, it's just not going good. And I was just really, really frustrated. And there was, and then I injured, I had some injury in my leg. And I really actually, like the last days of session in November, I was just like barely standing. I was just like, standing on one leg, making tempura for 60 people. It's just like madness. And so then I came to the head cook, and I said like, hey, I just really can't do it. Like I literally can't stand. I can't, I can't work. Can you give me a break? And he said, yeah, okay. Pain is pain. And it was interesting because I came to him complain like 10 times before that. But each time I was like, hey, this is like ruining my practice. His answer was always like, no, this is your practice. Go back. He never. But the moment I came in and actually said like, hey, I barely, I really hurt. And he's like, okay, then, well, you can rest. You don't need to be in the kitchen. So then the Rohatsu session was coming, which is the sort of like the most intense. And it was my first Rohatsu in Japan, which is also like very different feeling than in Europe, like, or anywhere else. Like people are serious, like people are, like you can see them walking on the cemetery, making vows that, this is the time. And it's like, the atmosphere is just really electric. Like everybody's just on fire, and you can feel it. Like, people are serious. People are not joking around. Like people are not looking anyone in the eyes. People are just, really focused, and all those, senior monks are coming from all over Japan, and it's really, you could feel this wave of like, oh, like this is for real. It's not, just a kind of intensity about it. And, there was the evening opening of the retreat, and the rules are read. The wake up is 3 a.m. and the people who are hitting with the stick are told to hit extra times, not only twice, but more. And all of that, and it's getting cold. It's getting really cold. It was my first winter, so my body wasn't prepared. It wasn't like accumulating fat, like eating mochi like crazy. There's no mochi even in December. But anyway, I had problems with food there, and I was losing weight. I was just really thin, and it was getting cold, really cold, and you could see the snow and there's no heating, right? Like there's no warmth inside, outside. The windows are open. It's cold. It's colder, and so you can feel like, oh, what's the temperature? And it's like, temperature doesn't matter. It's like -1. It's like, it's kind of like as if you're like homeless, right? Like if you can go back to your warm bed for 8 hours every day, like, it's a different cold. You just can't imagine how it is unless you have spent 6 months without a single, source of warmth inside. It's just very cold. And my body type, I'm generally cold. I don't do good in cold. I do pretty okay in heat. So anyway, it was just getting colder, and I was like, okay, this is it. I'm out of kitchen. That's the Buddha's enlightenment session. Finally, everything will go as it should. And I'm just like, and it's one of those, I don't know if like people who have done like retreats, have you ever done, like there's a opening of retreat in the evening, and you're just so kind of, like there's something so like one point, like you're just so concentrating that you can't sleep all night after the opening of retreat. You're just, so there was kind of like that. But then, the first day I noticed like there's just thoughts kind of intruding my concentration, and it's just like, it's okay, it's just the first day. It's it's like pushing, and people are just like being whacked, all the time. Just this sound is continuous. Like there's always someone walking, right? Like so, there's a meditation hall, and there's a person walking with a stick during Rohatsu. Often, sometimes two people. They're constantly patrolling. And if they see someone like slightly nodding or anything, they immediately just come behind. There's this sound that vibrates through the whole thing. And I remember very clearly there was this Austrian dude sitting next to me. They were just like young guys put together in this kind of little outer area. There's this Austrian dude next to me, and he was struggling so hard. And he would just like move and do stuff just like to kind of, I think, to break the tension. But the thing was like we were kind of in this little corner, so whenever the guy would, he would hear like the sound of steps, he would just freeze. And the guy would just walk past him, and then and then he would just like just do something to kind of release the tension, like a little tear on the spot. But the monitors, they are pretty sharp, so the guy saw it, that he's doing something kind of while they're a little bit out of reach. So I remember very clearly just sitting there, and the monitor is passing behind us because you sit facing the wall. And then he kind of like he went, he turned around, and his steps are even quieter and quieter. and then he's just standing like this in front, just behind this Austrian guy, and the Austrian guy is here, I'm here, and the Austrian guy is just it's a blind spot, right? Like he can't know, so he's just kind of confused because he doesn't hear the steps going far. But then it's like 1 minute is passing, 2 minutes is passing, 3 minutes are passing, 4 minutes is passing, and the guy finally is like kind of like almost like wanting to have a look, and in this moment, like with this shout, just and he's just like being slammed. It's like even I was just shaking. It's just really, it's really all intense. So the days were passing: second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day. It's it's getting snowing. You kind of start to like almost bleed from frostbite or something. It's like just and yet like I'm just pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and I just the distraction is just constantly just coming back at me. Like just there's this push and there's equal pull. Like there's just I'm not getting any traction. I'm not entering some blissful samadhi states. I'm not, everything is going wrong. Like all the time, just constantly, just the most painful thing, and just like disappointment in myself, and then trying not to be disappointed in myself, and then judging myself and this and that, and then but then trying to push it away, and then trying to concentrate and people are screaming, it's just and days are passing, and it's the 7th day of session, which is the last day, and the whole day is passing, and again it's just like nothing. Just confusion, no clarity, just continuously trying to push and being completely destroyed by my own conditioning. And the only job I got during this retreat, which was kind of the head monk, was to hit the bell, the large temple bell. It has to be rung 4 times a day, so different people are ringing it at different times. So I was supposed to ring it at 5 p.m. every day, and it was during the dinner, so I wouldn't eat dinner with everyone. Everybody would go to dinner, and I would keep sitting in the meditation hall, and then just before 5 I would go down, and go to the prostrations and ring the bell, and and the last doksan of the last meeting with the teacher of that retreat was in this period between after lunch, so between lunch and dinner, and that was the end. And I went for the I went for the meeting, and again it's just it was just sort of, it was clear, obvious to both of us where I was. Yeah. So probably I was just told something like, yosomi suru na, which means like, just don't look around, just do it, So again, the last doksan of the retreat finished, and so defeat was sealed. There won't be a glorious recognition during this wonderful Buddha's enlightenment session. And I went back to Zendo, and the last round finished, and everybody went to eat dinner, and I was sitting because they were still sitting at night. But so I was just sitting there completely alone, and I just remember clearly this moment when it was just like I started to do the same push. I started to like concentrate and wanting to just like push everything to kind of get the clarity or something. And exactly in this moment, there's just a sense like I just can't. I have no strength anymore. Just impossible. I just can't do it. This is it. And then I was like, I was just pushing at this flood of confusion all this time. Let the confusion come. Let it come and take me. I just don't care. I just can't do it anymore. I'm just too exhausted. I'm just too beaten up. It's over. So I just said, okay, let it come. I welcome whatever is here. And I remember very clearly there was this movement that started to happen, like this confusion, like the thoughts started to kind of rapidly pass, like in front of my eyes almost. And then there was like emotions that started to pass. And then almost it really felt like it wasn't like there was images passing in front of my eyes or in front of my mind's eyes or whatever. And it wasn't anymore even my own experiences or anything. It was suddenly like experiencing grief of a mother that lost her child or anger of someone who was betrayed, or it's just flowing and flowing and flowing, and there's just a river of experiences and confusion and emotions and situations and images, and everything was just flowing and flowing and flowing and flowing. And then suddenly, it was just getting more solid and more solid and more solid. And then it was getting more quiet and more quiet and more quiet. And then suddenly, there was just this peace, this sort of stillness that I have never experienced in my life. There's just utter peace. It can't be touched by anything, This sort of also the sense of center was gone, like the confusion just washed it away. And I remember very clearly going out. It was, in December it's already dark by 5 p.m. and ringing the bell. And seeing the tsubaki flower, or this purple flower that they bloom in December in the snow. Yeah. So in a way, sometimes, the path leads through the bottom, Sometimes the one who wants to make something happen in this practice, the one who wants to have some outcomes, wants to, loss, gain, I'm doing this practice good, I'm doing it not good, like all this thing, it's in this way or another, it just has to come to like a rest. And for some people it might be just like a, act of willful surrender and letting go of that. That's great. If it's one of you, then good for you. But sometimes it just takes to just come to the limits of what you think you can do. Just fail at it. But fail completely, It's like failing 90% and 10% still kind of haggling. you know, it's a little bit like lukewarm. It takes, if it's failure, let it be a total failure. And it doesn't need to be that either, you know. It's just some of us have this karma, like just stubborn, like, or something. Just can't. During one retreat, I had this image. Are there any like Monty Python flying circus fans in the room? So in the Holy Grail, there's this scene, right, when they say like, and now the test will be you have to cut the mightiest tree in the forest with a herring. So it's almost like that, like you just, the tools are wrong. but if you actually, I literally, during 90-day retreat in Korea, I was actually thinking it through. It's hilarious. How many herrings would it take? Because, you know, like if you rub it, like you can get some bark off, like even with one herring, right? You can do it. It doesn't matter, like, you know, if we feel like, you know, our karma is favorable. And probably if you would run it like a poll, probably every single person would tell you that their karma is, for whatever reasons, very unique to their thing, it's unfavorable when it comes to this process. Like you rarely meet someone who's like, no, I was destined. You know? It's like, for the most part, it's like, you know, even people like Kyogen and Ninchi, they just struggled, you know. They really wanted to know, and they had times where it felt like, oh man, this is just not going anywhere. So there's still time to fail during this retreat. There's still a little bit time left for that. So I have so many schedules, I need to to do something with them. So I'm writing the whole quotes. So this is this quote from Dogen. And he a little bit writes about that. He says, "Look, there was one who was enlightened with the sound of bamboo being struck, and another who clarified his mind upon seeing peach blossoms." There was another story, another teacher, right? Is the bamboo bright or dull, deluded or enlightened? Are peach blossoms shallow or deep, wise or foolish? Although flowers blossom every year, not everyone who sees them is enlightened. When a bamboo cracks, not everyone who hears it realizes the way. Enlightenment and clarity of mind occur in response to diligent investigation. Endeavoring in the way ripens the conditions of your realization. It is not the sound of bamboo. It is not that the sound of bamboo is sharp or the color of the blossom is vivid. Although the sound of bamboo is wondrous, it is heard at the moment when it's hit by a pebble. Although the color of a blossom is beautiful, they do not open by themselves, but unfold in the light of springtime. Studying the way is like this. You attain the way when the things come together. So in a way, you know, we can think of anyone else's, or like try to reproduce what someone else did. You know, it's kind of like trying to throw pebbles at the bamboo, or, you know, go look for peach blossoms because someone had realized the way through that. But certainly, you know, with heartful commitment, whether hot or cold, you know, whether through total surrender or you know, just blazing fire of investigation, or just the utter failure of all avenues through which you wished for it to happen. there certainly is, time comes through whatever moment, the clarity can occur at any moment. As long as, you actually don't turn back on it in some way. I certainly struggled this entire retreat that I was talking about, and I could have totally, it wasn't a rule that I had to stay in a zendo to when people are eating dinner. I could just go and use the bathroom and wait for my turn to hit the bell. And even if I was just like continuously just failing, there was something that still didn't allow me just to, not to show up. I did come to this end of this, the witness of my defeat for the entire week. I did show up, and I was able to receive the teaching. So as long as we, continue for each moment, the time will come. Whether, seeing the blossoms or hearing the sound or anything, if we truly let it in, if we truly, just one sound, one touch, one color, we can really open. One taste too. One smell. One thought.